All right, everybody. It is that time of year, the Thanksgiving special drinking stream. Sadly, Dink is out due to illness. Tough start to the NBA season. Dad life. He's grinding the best he can through it, but he's taking the night off. We do have Brat here filling in. Last time he filled in for me for ETM, he won the game changer. So hopefully this is a good sign of things to come, Sam.
Yeah, hope to carry that run good through. For everybody who's disappointed not to see Dink tonight, I am too. You know, when Leone asked me if I could fill in, my first thought was, I hope Drew feels better. And my second thought was, man, I was really looking forward to watching the show myself. Not because I don't want to do it, but because I genuinely enjoy watching Dink and Leone drunkenly bicker at each other every Thanksgiving. It's a very fun show. So I completely share everybody else's disappointment to see me here today.
The people do hope you are drinking, though. Will you be partaking in the festivities?
I will.
Look at us.
Got my wine.
Red wine bros.
We got our stemless red wines.
Someone asked what wine of choice. Well, it's a little 19 Crimes. Nothing fancy over here. Little Cabernet.
I've got a Bordeaux here.
I don't drink that much anymore like I used to. So this will probably hit me fast. Before we get into the drinking portion of the game, though, a little bit of housekeeping that I must get through, because we've got some deals going on for Black Friday, especially for people who are new. So first off, the ETR Black Friday deal. Let me make sure I get this correct. You can save up to 65% on our NFL in-season product. Let me bring that up. Here it is. Let's go. Doesn't look great on top of the background I have. I'm sure if producer Steven was here, it would look much better. And the in-season annual product on sale for $125. 1 month is on sale for $30. Check out establishedtorun.com/Black Friday for more details. We do also have a Solver Black Friday deal. You're going to see me disappear here so you can see the Solver deal. New customers receive 20% off any NBA or NFL product. Simply use code SOLVER20 at checkout. Links for both of these sales will be in the YouTube description. Please let us know if you have any questions. I'm basically a professional, as I left a comment up this entire time about hoping that Sam's drinking. There is some hope. There is some light with Dink missing that perhaps will bring the honored guest bit back at some point. Brat's in favor of it. Levitan's a hard no on the honored guest bit. All right, I'm going to bring up the prompt for the drinking game. You guys in chat will have to keep us on task. I'm trying my best not to see this, but I have to produce and drink and try and sound somewhat intelligent and host at the same time. So ripe for disaster. I've already saw the very top prompt. Shout out Romeo Dobbs. But I'm going to bring this up now for about 10 seconds. I'm going to close my eyes, get a good look at this. Let us know how many drinks we have to take throughout the show. Take it in, write it down if you have to. I'll flash it up here and there. All right, taking it down. So those are the prompts for the drinking game. We will go through this slate brought position by position, but we'll do some high-level stuff initially. Let some of this initial wine sink in before we get into position by position stuff. Shout out Dank for putting together some injury assumptions on this slate. I want to point that out because it's pretty big. So as far as injury stuff, we're assuming for Green Bay, Josh Jacobs in and pretty full. Messi at wide receiver. We're assuming Golden in right now. Possible he misses or we dock him for questionable. We're assuming Jaden Reed does not get activated with limited practice so far. But muddled wide receiver situation for Green Bay. Thankfully, it's the first game of this slate. For Detroit, we have Brock Wright and Cleve Raymond, both DNP on Monday. Kind of think Raymond out and Wright in, but those could definitely change. In the KC Dallas game, Pickens, Turpin were both at practice Tuesday after DNP Monday. Potentially could be Q there Limited practices on Tuesday. Kansas City, we have Pacheco back, currently projecting a 50-50 split with Kareem Hunt. And Worthy and Rice both banged up, but got full practices in Tuesday. So we have them in, but they could get a Q doc. Cincinnati, we're assuming Samaje Perine back. That's a big one, big impact on the workload for Chase Brown. We'll talk about that more at the running back. We also get Joe Burrow back on this slate. And for Baltimore, we're assuming that Rashad Bateman is back after a full practice on Tuesday. And, we're continuing to look at Lamar's designed rush stuff. He hasn't been fully healthy. So apologies for the long list on the Q stuff. Oh, I got to have the comments up. Someone put a question mark in the teleprompter for Leone. Yeah, I need some teleprompter help. Someone says there must be an age thing because someone says to drink. You got to tell us how long we're supposed to drink for because I know that's on the prompt, but we'll drink for a Samaje Perine reference here off the bat. Some things we go over each year brought on the Thanksgiving slate. I know you're not a big MME guy. I usually throw this one to Drew, but I'll throw the late swap stuff to you. I'll cover the MME stuff. If you're doing rules and optimizers, you want to loosen up what you normally do. You can allow multiple players versus your defense. You can do really heavy onslaughts, like 4 skill players with your quarterback. Maybe not as much this year as past years, which we'll talk about. But yeah, loosen up your rules for MME, certainly. And as always, it's a big late swap slate. So why don't you touch on that, Brett?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be overly restrictive with the rules you're setting on this slate for MME stuff. I won't be MMEing myself, but trying to put my Drew Dinkmeyer hat on here. I certainly would, even if I am going to set a lot of rules, I might purposefully set rules counter to the rules that I would normally set in the hopes that some other people might be a little bit lazy on this slate and use their normal optimizer settings. And you don't necessarily want to just have 0 players against your defense. You don't necessarily want to force a bring back. You don't necessarily want to limit to maximum 3 pass catchers from the same team or something like that. You could get super weird, and that's what it's going to take on the slate if you want to solo ship something. The $5 Millie Maker on DraftKings has like nearly 600,000 entries in it. So with only 3 games, you're going to have to get pretty weird if you want a chance to solo ship that. Overall, I would not be afraid to just throw rules out the window and figure out, exactly what you want to get into, or even set rules that will purposely get you way off the board with this, limited 3-game slate.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone said my audio is messed up. Let me know if it's still messed up. Sometimes my mic is not in the right spot. So just let me know if the audio doesn't sound perfectly right. One thing on late swap, I'll note, it is always, to me, like a little bit easier in theory than in practice when you get into a slate. So agree, you want to pre-plan those swaps ahead of time as much as possible, but sometimes it's just difficult to, you just feel like in between. So I think it's good to kind of, have the lineup you prefer to play as your starting one. And if you're kind of torn, maybe stick with that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, especially when people are going to be, maybe they're building a lineup in the morning and then they go to family, or they're going to be sitting at the Thanksgiving table. They don't want to have to think about, oh, do I need a swap? Do I not need a swap? I like to set rules for myself. So I'll have a specific lineup and I'll say, okay, if this happens in the first game, and I'll just give myself a hard line, then I will stay. And if it doesn't, then I will stick, or I will swap. And I will have my swap already like on my phone, pre-planned, so that I can just not have to think about it in the middle of Thanksgiving. And I can say, this is, what I told myself I'm going to do. I can just check the box score real quick and then say, oh, I need a swap, or, oh, got off to a good start, don't have to swap. So that really takes a decision out of your hands and helps you make better plus EV decisions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, something we talk about, like, you kind of have to define relatively like what a good start is, what a bad start is. Landmines are always bad, especially in MME. You're going to have to get different. But you do kind of need to see what the chalk players do versus the contrarian player, and like kind of what's remaining on the slate. Let's keep this moving though. Apparently onslaughts on the drinking list, which means we're going to have an onslaught of drinks
It's gonna be
That's
a
going
long
to be a
night.
problem. That's going to be especially they put that one on because I think Brat's on here. Thank goodness Tampa Bay is not on this slate, or we'd really have a lot of issues. One thing on this particular slate, a lot of these past Thanksgivings, we've had one game that kind of really sticks out either negatively or positively. This year, we've got like 3 pretty good games. We've got some of that injury stuff I mentioned. And I think the total result of that is it's one of the more dynamic slates for Thanksgiving that we've had. The totals for the games are 52.5, 52, and 49. And that 49-1 is Detroit at Green Bay. So 3 pretty high total slate games. There's no kind of clear void or no one offense that's way, way better than the rest.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible slate, especially relative to the past Thanksgiving slates we've had, where we have 6 teams that all have potentially explosive offenses. 4 teams are playing in a dome. For all 6 teams, this game like really matters for their playoff outlook, for the future of the season. So all these teams we know are going to be going all out. We know they can put up a lot of points, but at the same time, all 6 teams have really disappointed at times this season. We know the Cowboys can faceplant. The Chiefs haven't been the same. Joe Burrow's just getting back for the Bengals. Lamar and the Ravens offense hasn't looked quite right. We've seen Goff struggle recently. Love struggled recently. So, at the right point in the season, these are all teams that people would be really excited to play. And I think just playing around with the initial sims that we now have up at the solver, just got them up this afternoon.
Right.
I think it's showing that, people or the sims are going to have a hard time just going full onslaught. That's going to be another drink already.
Oh, another. Oh, yeah. We just started right away.
I'll call that one on myself there. Basically, on some 2-game, 3-game slates, we've seen situations where the sims are going to suggest just go all in on one game and hope the other 1 or 2 fail. I think the sims are recognizing like that's going to be really hard on this slate with the totals that we have and with the offenses that we have. So really interesting slate. And it feels a lot more like maybe a divisional round or conference round playoff game or playoff slate than it does a typical Thanksgiving slate.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rick says there isn't enough drinking going on yet. Just saying, Rick, this is the fantasy virgin version of a night out for us. Okay, so you gotta calibrate your expectations correctly. We spend all week in our basements getting the inputs correctly. So just keep that in mind. I'm gonna flash the drinking prompt one more time on the screen, and then we'll get into position by position. So let's go to quarterback. And and speaking of that, a lot of times we have one quarterback that's like 35 to even 50% owned. We don't have a single quarterback, even in small field, projected for more than 30% ownership right now. And a lot of times you get quarterbacks that are like 5%. Right now we have Love and Goff as the lowest right now at that 9 to 10% range. So it is definitely spread out. Here we have Mahomes, Lamar as the chalk. Really cheap price tag for Mahomes. I was looking at, do I have to drink? Oh, no. The one thing I was looking at with Mahomes, is he's played like 7 straight outdoor games or something like that. And now we get a dome game for him against a pretty bad defense. So I do think that there's a chance that we're, even as good as he's been. I mean, he has 4 3+ touchdown passes on the games on the season. He just threw for 352 yards. He's cleared 40 attempts 3 times, including 45+ in the last 2 games. Granted, one of those was overtime. Casey's been dominating play volume. So it's no surprise that he's a top value. Sims do like him as chalk. The question, I guess, in the real small field stuff is if he, to what level does he steam?
Yeah, he's our clear top value, but at the same time, like you said, there's no like really awful play on this slate. So it's kind of just going to be a situation where, yeah, I would like to have a lot of Mahomes, especially at this projection, and I'd like to have Lamar. But if they get too high, then be happy to just go ahead and play somebody who's going to be 5% owned if somebody does squeeze down there. What are we drinking for now?
I don't know. We're trusting the chat. We're putting our faith into the YouTube commenters, something that Silva would never do because he's a coward. And he's not a man of the people, despite what he says. We are a man of the people. We love the YouTube commenters, and we're going along with them.
Wow, is steam and squeeze really both
someone said
rules?
We said squeeze. So I guess we have to drink.
What are we allowed to say here?
Not much. We can say negative things about Romeo Dobbs. I know that much. That's the prompt I saw. We can't say positive things. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, I agree. The kind of sweet spot quarterback the Sims, seem to like in some of the stuff I was looking at with Dak, where you get access to this, KC Dallas game where that's the game where the pass volume could get nuttiest, right? Where if you get Dallas playing from behind, they're not a really plus PROE team, but they will throw when they have to, and they will run up tempo. And then KC is a very plus PROE team, and I think the completion rate for Mahomes could be much higher here than he's shown thus far in the season. Really funnel a ton of completions. So that's the game I'm most interested in, even though obviously it's gonna carry a good bit of ownership.
Yeah, I think that's a spot that I'm particularly interested in as well, both on the Mahomes side and on the Dak side. In the Lions Green Bay game, certainly think that I think we should be able to, list quarterbacks that are over 29.
That seems unfair.
Running backs, wide receivers, sure, but quarterbacks?
You're going to make us drink for Mahomes, and oh my God, this is out of control. Chat wants to see things deteriorate.
This is incredible. Yeah, I think I like the Mahomes and Dak stuff quite a bit, particularly because in Green Bay and Detroit, both of those quarterbacks can put up big plays. They can go back and forth. But I think both of those teams, if they're having it their way, will just be running the ball. They'll be establishing the run. And the quarterbacks will come along for the ride. But I think Kansas City, unless you think Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are going to be especially efficient, if you think Javonte Williams is going to be especially efficient, I think those are two offenses that if they are really explosive, it's going to have to come through the air. So I like that spot a lot. And if Mahomes does get steamed, I'll be happy to just play it from the other side of Dak.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar there. The one that I would maybe like IKB off our projections a little bit, but the Burrow uncertainty, we saw them in this spot last year where they just played with this. I mean, I guess they're a little bit out of the playoffs, so it's not quite the same. They were kind of making the charge, but they just played with this urgency. The defense was terrible, and this desperation that just led to huge plus PROE with Burrow. We don't have the big sample this year. If they really do just chuck a ton, could support a ton of pass catchers. That's the one that I like. As far as the quarterbacks over 29, rules are rules. This isn't NOM. There are rules. I agree, Donnie. So we will abide. But, Bra, it says me, so you can mention the quarterbacks. I can't. So
cool.
I could mention Jordan Love. He's definitely sub 29. I'm actually surprised Love doesn't sim a little bit better. He's been a sim darling for us, despite really being frustrating. He had a few games in a row where the pass volume surprisingly was quite high. I feel like it was forever ago, but Tucker Kraft was really the main beneficiary in one of those games. Other times it's just been really spread out. And we do know that they're willing to go into an absolute shell like they did last week if they can. I like it a little bit, Detroit, where you get the upgrade going into a dome. They're underdogs. They're playing against this aggressive defense that's like high risk, high reward, and Love's kind of a high risk, high reward quarterback to begin with. So I think it's interesting. The issue with Love on this slate, honestly, I think, Brat, is just we're looking at some pretty heavy pass volume quarterbacks between Mahomes, Dak, and Burrow. And then you've got Goff with the really high team total. And then Lamar is obviously just on a different level than Love from a fantasy perspective. So I think this Sims like the spot for Green Bay. It's just the quarterback competition is pretty real from a ceiling perspective here.
Yeah, I'm a little worried just that that game turns into a little bit more of a dud than we're expecting it to. It does have the lowest total for a reason. I think that Green Bay Detroit game. I'm a little bit worried about the Baltimore game as well, where I think the Ravens offense has just looked broken in recent weeks. We've noted for weeks how they have the easiest schedule. They were 1-5 and they were still favored to win the division because they had such an easy schedule upcoming. But they're like barely squeaking by teams like the Browns, barely squeaking by teams like the Jets. They were losing to the Jets like for a decent portion of that game. They looked really broken. So don't know if Lamar is injured. Don't know if the offense is just messed up. Don't really care which it is. But I don't have a lot of faith that it's just suddenly going to get better. Lamar didn't even practice yesterday. So my concern is that maybe the Ravens offense still looks bad, even against the terrible Bengals defense, who did look kind of competent against Drake May and the Patriots. And then Joe Burrow's a little rusty. Maybe that game underwhelms a little bit, where skill position players can still get there, but the game doesn't kind of have the same touchdown flow that we expect it to. So overall, the spot that I really feel best about is Mahomes and Dak.
Yeah, I think we're aligned there. Lamar's stuff's difficult because they do have the highest team total on the slate, despite the issues. And by, like kind of a decent margin here. So, but that is one that doesn't feel as good if everyone's going to completely ignore the issues they've had and like kind of like solely play the projection. Sometimes when people IKB it, then that's where I get in. Let's go to running back. And I think people are going to play Gibbs a ton regardless of this. They're going to figure out a way to play him. He's had 2 insane performances recently. Brat and I in our DMs have had good teams without Gibbs. We've had good teams with Gibbs, but good teams without the last couple of weeks. And we're like, if he just doesn't run like a 70-yard touchdown, we're like, just don't run for a 60-yard touchdown. And I'll just drink to demonstrate how that ended for us.
Why not?
For someone who said that's low on Hunt, that we're assuming Pacheco back in somewhat of a split, and it's going to be kind of annoying. I do think Hunt maybe comes in a little bit higher than that. It's hard to get these perfectly fine-tuned. Derrick Henry, the price tag has come up on him, but if you do kind of worry about Lamar, but you believe in this team total for the Ravens, I mean, it's kind of big dog. Even if the efficiency is not quite where it was on a per carry basis last year, the touchdown upside is there. We saw the 2 touchdowns. Okay, he's over 30. God, Hunt's over 32. My goodness. Keaton Mitchell, they had talked up during the week last week. And then
definitely under 29.
And then he only had 2 carries that game. So I expect on the short week we see more Keaton Mitchell. People will probably play him a little bit, but it shapes up good for Henry. And then Chase Brown would have been mega chalk and might still be if Samaje Perine's out. We've really had a tough time deciding how to do that workload projection. We have 3 different scenarios, honestly, right now on this split. We have one where it's early season split, which was Samaje Perine playing very specific situations and workhorse Chase Brown. We have one scenario where it's what was going on before Samaje Perine got hurt, which is kind of like a 60-40 split in favor of Chase Brown, but Samaje Perine playing base work a decent bit in addition to pass down stuff. And then we have another scenario that's like basically middling those two. And some of it comes down to, I think, how healthy Perine is. Like, I think if he's fully healthy, it's not going to be workhorse Chase Brown. I could be off on that, but even on the short week, I don't think it's going to be that. If the ankle is really bothering him, maybe they're more selective in the usage, though.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just laughing at the chat here.
Oh my God! You guess my height, weight, and jersey, you'll win a Josh Jacobs card.
A card that's been promised to somebody else for 3 years. Yeah, I think it's really tough to dial in ownership here at running back. So just going through things, our projections, our exposure rates think Jahmyr Gibbs should be significantly less owned than we have him here, like in the 30%, high 30s, but don't think that he should necessarily be 48% approaching 50%. And then I wouldn't be surprised in some small field stuff if he were to come in like 60%. And kind of same thing with Derrick Henry, where because he's projected so close to Jahmyr Gibbs, we have him as a better play. Obviously, the DK value there is higher for Derrick Henry and our exposure rates are higher, but we have both of them bumped a ton. My concern is that a lot of people are going to kind of just lock those two in and figure it out from there. We'll talk about some other plays that make it all fit as we get into the other positions, but
small field is drink? That seems outrageous.
Especially for two people who primarily play small field. I think if you want to find the best leverage plays on the slate, it's here at running back. If you feel really good or have a really good read on any particular running back, I think Javonte Williams is going to get played much less than our projections suggests that he should. Same with Josh Jacobs, same with David Montgomery. This kind of second tier here is where if you have a read, go for it, because again, before editing the ownerships down, our algorithms were suggesting that Jacob should be closer to 30% than 20%. Same with Montgomery, and Javonte was closer to like 35%. So really had to edit these guys down, but that's what you got to do to get Jahmyr Gibbs and Derrick Henry as high as they should be. And then I'm really interested to see what happens with Chase Brown here, given that don't know exactly how the rest of the market is going to treat him with Samaje Perine back. I know Leone just kind of talked through the different scenarios we have there, but there were a couple slates in a row prior to Samaje Perine being out where we were lowest in the market on Chase Brown by a good margin. Other sites were projecting him a lot higher than us. Sometimes it worked out for us, sometimes it didn't. But point is, I think we tend to value, or at least take into consideration, the effect of Samaje Perine on Chase Brown more than some other places in the industry do. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up lower on him and he sims pretty poorly as a result. But if the field takes it too far, he could end up being a pretty good play.
Yeah. First of all, I'll address the chat. It is a Roy Williams jersey. How many people out there think I'm 5'5"? This isn't the Davis Maddox show. I mean, my goodness. I'm not tall, but 5'5". Whew. Incorrect. The scary thing, if you're following the Sims, they're going to be on a Jahmyr Gibbs fade for kind of the reasons Brett outlined. Absolutely horrifying. But sometimes on a small slate too, it's not that the ceiling's not there for him to, put up a huge score, but it is a very expensive price tag. He's the highest priced player on the entire slate. And generally, the Sims are going to be in favor of being on the fade side of really expensive players that are heavily owned, where there's routes to them being pretty good and you can still win without them. Or if they do fail for whatever reason, it's just a huge leverage on half the field. Especially because, getting them in, fitting them into the lineup is difficult. One of the good things for Gibbs in this matchup, it's a tougher matchup overall for Detroit. We saw what happened week 1. Green Bay dominated them. That was obviously in Green Bay, probably the worst spot, first game for the new offensive coordinator for Detroit. But one thing that happened, we saw a lot of checkdowns to Gibbs. That kind of aligns with how Green Bay funnels targets, lower ADOT, really limits yards per reception, but the completion rate's kind of okay. Have to drink for leverage.
Oh boy.
No, there's no way I'm 6'2". 6'2" is a worse guess than 5'5" is a better guess than 6'2". So I'm probably on I for MME. I don't think I'd be underweight Gibbs, but I wouldn't be taking. I don't think I'd be taking. I'd be like 30% Gibbs probably, but I'm not MME, and he's probably not going to be on my single entry team. Just I think there's better ways to build on this slate. but yeah, it's terrifying for sure. His backfield counterpart has some direct leverage.
Yeah, I'd say Montgomery has a ton of leverage, and I think that's why part of the reason why the Sims don't really like Gibbs and they like Montgomery so much is just because we're suggesting that Montgomery is going to be lower owned than he should be. We're suggesting Gibbs is higher owned than he should be. You put those two together, and the Sims are like a no-brainer. Just play Montgomery. And obviously, Gibbs had that massive game last week. He was hyper efficient with it, but we don't know, like, if he doesn't break those long runs, does Montgomery end up having a much better game than he would have otherwise?
Yep. Someone says the 6-2 thing was a song lyric. If people think I know song lyrics, they will be disappointed. All right, Brat. Trying to keep this train on the tracks here. You're doing a much better job than me at giving sound, sage advice at this point in the show. So I'll probably end up between Henry and Gibbs. If you're fading Gibbs, I do think sometimes we say don't play all the chalk together. I think it's hard to do all your fades together as well. It's just like difficult to fade Henry and Gibbs. You're maybe asking for a lot. Not that you can't do it. There's definitely outcomes with play double, triple expensive wide receiver and play maybe Montgomery and Javonte. But basically, if I'm choosing between Gibbs and Henry as chalk, I think at this point I'm going to be on Henry, maybe get off Lamar and get onto that Dallas KC game in terms of pass catchers and passing. For the backs we haven't mentioned, let's call it the riffraff. The riffraff we always have to deal with here. Can't just throw out the riffraff on Thanksgiving. People are going to play basically all of the non-starting running backs. Is there anyone that you feel most saucy about? My God.
I wish there was somebody, because I feel like I'm doing a disservice to Drew by not touting somebody here. But sadly, there's nobody I'm really excited about. I think the one that the field is going to gravitate towards is Keaton Mitchell. The field just really likes Keaton Mitchell for some reason. He gets like a couple touches per game. And I know he's really fast. I know he like looks shot out of a cannon when he touches the ball. And I guess he could take a long one for a touchdown, like, sure. But even if he does that, his ceiling to me is like 12 points unless Derrick Henry gets injured. And maybe that's enough on this slate. But just the way pricing shakes out, I don't really feel like he has a great shot to be optimal. Our projections are quite low on him. I don't love it, but yeah, he's going to get played.
I probably Kareem Hunt would be I guess he's not even doesn't count as a non-starting running back, but of the red values would be the one I'm most likely to play, where maybe they really talked him up as playing well last week. If Pacheco doesn't come in and has as big a role as we thought, I think it would be easy. Mentions Hill missing practice today, smelling the steam on Keaton Mitchell. I'm with you though. Like, you're also, I suppose if you're getting in a bunch of expensive wide receivers is the route it works. But from a flex standpoint, you're competing with like Christian Watson, and types like that, like some legitimately like big play receivers that have solidified roles. That's going to be hard to beat. So I think if you're playing really taking a shot at one of these running backs, it's probably a 4 wide receiver lineup. I'd have a tough time doing it in a 3 running back lineup. I'd have a really tough time doing it in a 3 running back lineup.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I would not play one of these like 4K running backs as I guess that's for the over 29 thing.
That's a killer prompt.
Yeah, especially for this slate. I definitely would not play one of these 4K running backs in flex on a 3 running back team. I think you do it because you're saying a couple things. You're saying, one, you need to fit in more expensive wide receivers, tight ends, whatever the other positions are that you think you need to fit in. And 2, you think that at least one of the more expensive running backs at chalk, Gibbs, Henry, whoever, is going to fail massively. And so you just get a lot of leverage by going down to one of these other running backs who get you like 10, 12, 15 points in the second running back spot, and running back as a whole is just a failure. I saw that note that you flashed from chat about Justice Hill missing practice today. I think he's the guy that if he was fully healthy, I would be interested in him at 4K, where if the game turns into a shootout, he's going to be the guy on the field that is always there for the passing downs. And maybe it gets into a situation where there's just a lot of passing downs. Maybe the Ravens fall behind. And for that same argument on the other side, I think if I had to choose one guy, it would be Justice Hill if he was healthy, but because it sounds like he's probably not, it'd be Samaje Perine, where maybe he just gets on the field a lot more than we're anticipating and he catches a lot more balls. Maybe he takes a screen for a 40-yard touchdown and he catches 4 additional balls as the Bengals are trying to play catch-up mode. So those are the kind of spots I'd be looking at rather than somebody like Keaton Mitchell being hyper efficient on 5 carries.
Yeah, as long as we don't get overtly negative news on Perine's ankle, like I think that's where I agree, where I would want to go. Because if it's anywhere close to the split it was before he got hurt, he's vastly underowned. Whereas these other guys are really wish-casted into higher ownership. For the people talking about 2 tight end slates, they're not off the board. It just, to me, doesn't make sense with the cheap, terribly low-owned running back. If anything, the 2 tight end slates are a way to get like the Gibbs and Henry chalk together, not to play, Keaton Mitchell. Perine over 29. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's just stop talking about him.
Yeah, let's knock it off. Also, I'm just gonna call this close enough for Double J 4-3. I'm 5'8", 168, so 5'9", 165. Good enough. Congrats. Double T. The people tricked us. They tricked us. That's a refill.
Well, that's going to be a common theme on this slate.
We're in trouble. Okay. Let me refocus here for a second. I've been told by corporate, I don't know if you guys heard at the top of the show, Black Friday sale. It's a killer. Let me find my teleprompter. ETR Black Friday sale. Save up to 65% on our NFL in-season product. NFL in-season annual products on sale for $125. 1 month is on sale for $30. Check out establishyourrun.com/Black Friday for more details. True professional. This is why they pay me the big bucks, clearly. We have to this is absolutely
There's no way. I don't
we
believe
have to drink for the promo I was told to put up. Goodness gracious.
Is that real?
I mean, multiple people said it in the chat. Not that I'm super trustworthy of the chat, but okay, we got to earn those steak knives, though, Brat. We got to earn them. We're earning them. My future self's going to be mad at me tomorrow morning. Let's go to wide receiver. Someone says Chad is lying. I don't know.
Can't trust him.
I don't know. All right. I'm going to flash the drinking card one more time. Someone asked for it. Pay attention. This is it. Read it and weep. I'm weeping. That's for sure. Okay. Wide receiver. This is part of the issue with if Gibbs really steams to a huge amount is you've got some very legitimately strong wide receivers on the slate. Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown at $1,000 cheaper than Jahmyr Gibbs. We have the field playing those two at the highest rate of any wide receiver, but still not quite at the rate that Gibbs is being played. And then you kind of have these mid-high tier receivers, Pickens, Lamb, Rashee Rice with secondary ownership. And then the kind of quote-unquote values would be Zay Flowers, Jamison Williams, and the Green Bay receivers, and a little bit of Xavier Worthy. And then you start dipping into the cheap wide receivers. We don't have any single cheap wide receiver that projects as a good value. There's definitely playable guys. I think the riffraff at wide receiver is much more viable than at running back if you want to get weird and play like a sub 5% owned play on this slate. But usually we get like one sub 4K guy that's like kind of straight chalk. We don't really have that. That also feeds into the Gibbs fade a little bit, just not loving the cap relief plays relative to ownership.
They took everything away from us.
We I'm trying to navigate. There's no clean path. We're just running straight through the landmines, hoping we're
Not
fast
great.
enough.
Yeah, doing ownership edits before the show for this slate was really tough because, oh no, what?
No, the chat's messing with me. Like, people are saying the exact same comments. I don't know if it's like one user on 2 accounts or someone. I don't know. Don't worry about it. Pepper Tony's causing problems.
The edits were really tough for this slate because, like you said, people are going to want to play the expensive running backs. But the question when we talk about, okay, such and such player needs to come up, this player needs to come up, somebody has to come down if other players are coming up. That's always the tricky problem. And then we have these 3, 4, 5, however many you want to include in it, expensive, good play wide receivers, specifically Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, and the 2 Cowboys. And one of them is going to have to come down, if not all of them, just a little bit in order to get the ownership up on those expensive running backs, especially if those running backs start to approach like 60% in small fields. So if we're going to, get there, I don't have a great feel at this point which of those wide receivers are going to be the ones who squeeze. I don't think it can really be Jamar Chase because people are dying to play him, especially without T. Higgins in and now Joe Burrow's back. Amon-Ra St. Brown just had a really big game. Maybe it's CeeDee Lamb who gets squeezed a lot. Maybe Rashee Rice just comes down a tiny bit, but not a lot. I don't think that people want to just completely overlook George Pickens here. So my guess, even though he projects a little bit better than Pickens, is that CeeDee Lamb maybe comes down and squeezes quite a bit, and the vibes are just a little bit bad there. But he did have, but Lamb did have, plenty good usage. He's just had a lot of drops recently. Yeah. So overall, I'm having a hard time like feeling out the ownership at the top of the wide receiver spot.
And I was laughing at the beginning of this when you said, the problem is, you say to bump the expensive guys and you got to figure out how. Poor Brat is in that situation literally every Sunday morning. We're like, dude, everyone's going to play CMC. Got to get it up. And he's like, well, do the math, guys, because you can't just hit the up arrow on CMC, which is the opposite of that. That's me, where everyone's like, this Jahmyr Gibbs projection, it's got to go up. It's difficult work. The CeeDee Lamb stuff, I mean, that's the play, right? 6,900 CeeDee Lamb might be more owned than this on a main slate 6 weeks ago, so that's where I'm probably going the most at wide receiver. The guy that I'm most likely, if you were to say this, who's the guy you're most likely to play on this slate in your single entry lineup? CeeDee Lamb. Face is getting a little warm, Brat. Feeling the wine. This is where we know we're headed in a good place. Lamb versus
only
Pickens.
2 positions left.
As far as Lamb versus Pickens, on the ownership side of things, not the ownership side of things, the exact opposite, the fantasy point side of things. That's what I meant to say. The fantasy point side of things, we have Lamb with a higher target share still, higher catch rate. We have Pickens with a higher yards per reception and a much higher share of the team's touchdowns. If you look at the ceiling, we actually have Pickens with a higher ceiling than CeeDee Lamb, despite a 0.7 lower base. That speaks to the efficiency side of things. The Sims like Lamb better than Pickens because every outcome matters, especially on a small slate. On a bigger slate, sometimes you're just worried about the 80th percentile plus outcomes, right? On a small slate, a lot of these Lamb outcomes where he's catching a lot of passes and is just beating Pickens matter a ton, because somebody has to win even if all 3 games suck and are go below the total. So just want to point that out. I have a tough time playing Zay too much without Lamar, and I think that's one that I really would just want to play on the correlation side of things. And then KC, we've obviously been too hot on Worthy most of the season. But But damn, he's in pretty good spot here if you're talking about GPP leverage. As far, one of the cheapest viable wide receivers with less ownership than some of the other guys, not projecting that much worse than JMO or Watson. The Sims really like playing one of this trio, JMO, Watson, Worthy, which is basically this is your cap relief that comes with a legitimate ceiling and isn't over-owned. Almost every sim lineup comes preloaded with one of those guys. That might seem obvious, like no shit, like play one of those guys, but yeah, I think it makes sense to get one of those high ceiling guys in. Now, I'm sure in that rambling I had to have hit some prompts.
I will say,
Billy says Billy's got it. Just drink the bottle. We're working our way through it, Billy.
Yeah, gonna need a refill soon with all these prompts here. I will say on the Pickens Lamb dynamic, it reminds me a lot of the AJ Brown Devonta Smith dynamic from last week. I think I put in our Slack when we were talking through ownership edits that I could see Devonta Smith really separating from AJ Brown if he was, depending on how people wanted to play that Eagles situation, as either Hurts double stack or as one-offs, just because the vibes were better on Devonta Smith and people thought it was a better spot for him versus AJ Brown, who's had all this whining in the media and whatnot. Even though we did have AJ Brown projecting better, both outright and as a better value for despite being $300 more expensive. And I see very similar parallel here with Pickens and Lamb, where Pickens just had this big game. I think people are starting to sour on Lamb just a little bit, even though the same usage is still there. And our projections, the Sims, everything from a math perspective is saying Lamb is the better play. But I think people would rather play Pickens. So I edited the ownerships to put Pickens just slightly ahead. But if we were just leaving it to the math, we'd be saying that Lamb should be like 6% more owned than Pickens. I just don't think it's going to completely shake out that way. I think both of them will be plenty owned in DAC double stacks, of course, because at least one of them is going to be in those stacks, if not both of them. But as far as just one-offs go, I think people are going to be more excited to play Pickens. So that leaves, of course, Lamb as a better play. Getting back to the mid-tier that you started in, though, Leone, I do think that trio's like going to be the key to the slate in some sense, where if one of those guys goes for 20, you're going to need them because that's going to be like a 4x on their salary. And it kind of opens everything up for the rest of your lineup from a salary perspective. There's just not that much ceiling, at least likelihood of a ceiling hitting once you go below those guys in salary. So if you get Watson right, if you get Worthy right, if you get JMO right, I think you're kind of rolling. I especially like JMO and Christian Watson because they're in the first game. So right from the start, like, are you off to a good start or are you off to a bad start? Where if you roster JMO or Watson or even both of them, like I hit or I was a complete dud. And those are kind of the players that they are, where they're not that likely to get you like 9 points. And even if they get you 9 points, you don't even know what to do with it. But if they get you 20 or more, like, you definitely know where you stand. And at least Worthy, he's not in the late game. So you still have a good sense of trying to mix and match those three. And then, going into that final game of the night, like exactly where you stand as far as how many snowflakes or flames you have in your lineup. So I want to play a good bit of all those guys.
Thomas says, I think Silva should be on this show strictly to drink beers. I think if it was straight up me plus brought beers compared to Silva beers, Silva would still be a heavy favorite, even if you combined us. Feel confident in that. As far as those receivers, the one I feel best about is Watson. Just kind of seems like he's healthy, and we get this really high variance kind of defense from Detroit, which seems to line up well with Watson, which doesn't mean it's going to hit it, but I think you're going to get the opportunities. You want the high variance nature of things. So I like Watson the most at current ownership. I don't know what the field's going to do with JMO, where short slate Thanksgiving, people generally tend to love JMO home in a dome. On the flip side, just I think, did he straight up goose egg? I think, I think he just straight up goose egged his chalk on a main slate. And now you get him against a Green Bay defense that really kind of keeps things underneath, which is not necessarily JMO's game. He can hit those crossing patterns, but he's like the big play guy, and that's sort of what Green Bay's been good at limiting. Now that's factored into our projections. You don't want to double count. Romeo Dobbs is a guy you also don't want to double count. I've docked his TD rate. I've docked his yards per reception. I kind of brought his target share down. I know he's been frustrating, and we have him projected not that great, so you might not necessarily end up getting him in sims or optimals or whatever. I wouldn't like triple dock him. Like, we've already done the docking. He's tough because if you look at his yards per target, he's at 8.0, like perfectly like solid. And it just seems like for whatever reason that when they throw a ton, his target share seems to be a little bit less. When they throw a lot, his target share is higher. When he's getting catches and yards, he's not getting touchdowns. When he's getting touchdowns, he's not getting catches and yards. It just seems like for whatever reason, he ends up like with a pretty flat line. Whether that's there's some signal there, that's complete randomness, is really tough to tell. But kind of curious if we see in small field hand builds, like, does Watson get double Dobbs or do they stay close? Because if he gets double Dobbs, then Dobbs is probably a good play, no matter how you feel about the range of outcome stuff. If they're
I know
close,
we got a drink for that. Watson's
the one that I want to play. I knew I was really in dangerous waters there.
Yeah, you can't suggest Romeo Dobbs. I had to get a refill.
Brat just wanted me to drink mostly so that I would stop talking about Romeo Dobbs, not because of the integrity of the prompt. And as someone notes, we have Jaden Reed projected out right now, Golden projected in. That's also going to affect things for everybody at the wide receiver position. It's tough to tell exactly what would happen. Reed's target per out run has been great. I imagine, he's going to be the same old Reed as before, which means he's only playing slot snaps. He's not running all of the routes, but he's pretty productive on the limited routes that he does run. I think Wicks would maybe take the biggest hit of the bunch, and Dobbs and Watson might not come down as much as you think, but it's a little bit difficult. And I agree. Diabolical card writers. Thanks a lot, Steven.
Agreed. I made the meme before as a joke, but I also actually believe it, where I am not super into Christian Watson if we have Golden out and Jaden Reed out, because it just means a lot of people are going to be excited about Christian Watson, and I don't want to play him in the ownership. But if Reed is in, if Golden is in, and people are just like, I guess I'll play JMO, I don't need to mess around with Christian Watson, that's exactly when I want to play him. I love playing Christian Watson at low ownership. Pretty much every time he's at low ownership, I'm happy to take a swing on him. So he would be my favorite of that bunch. If the other Green Bay wide receivers do play, we'll see if they do or not. But
yeah, I probably like Xavier. I probably like Worthy and Watson more than JMO. I'm worrying upon a JMO fade unless it really seems like people are fudding JMO. Below that kind of group, where are you looking at basically the riffraff, the guys that don't project well, but probably better to play than the cheap running back? So you've got basically the wide receiver 3 pluses. Who do you like anybody or no?
I can't say that I really like anybody much. I think these guys are single digit ownership for a reason. I don't think they're great. They're all below 3.0, negative 3.0 values for us. I think maybe the guy I like most is Andre Yoshivas, maybe Rashad Bateman. If Bateman was healthy, he'd be an easy best of these guys, where he has a lot of games that are duds, but we know he can explode for, 100 yards and a touchdown, or 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, whatever it is. He has those spike games. So I would be a lot more interested in Bateman if that were the case. Don't know if he's healthy, but at this ownership, and our ownership is probably too low on Bateman right now. We're going to have to come up on that. Maybe he gets to 10%, but I can't really see it getting past 10%. Regardless, I do think that Bateman probably has the biggest ceiling of these guys. As far as the Bengals guys go, I do like Yoshibas more than Mitch Tinsley. I do love Mitch Tinsley. Hit on a preseason slate with him when he scored 2 touchdowns. So I know he's got it. And I know he can score touchdowns. I know he can make those contested catches in the end zone. But I think Yoshivas just has a better role in the offense. I think he's played with Burrow longer. And Yoshivas hasn't always like lived up to his potential. He doesn't always do the most with his targets, but he does earn targets, and he's played with Burrow for a couple years now. I think that I would rather go to Yoshivas than Tinsley, especially if the field gets a little enamored by the shiny new toy with Tinsley, and I could see him flipping Yoshivas in ownership there.
I'm enamored with the shiny new toy. I like Tinsley better. Yoshivas ran 90% of routes, phenomenal, but he's run a ton of routes all season long. You know, like it's not a huge role increase. You're hoping for the target per route run increase with one of the guys out. Tinsley, on the other hand, goes from 5% route share in week 11 to 74% routes. Still less than Yoshivas, but makes the big play. And I think different. We're swapping T out, Chase in, but I still think. I mean, the good news is it was concentrated, right? It was Gesicki, Tinsley, and Yoshivas. So if you want to take some chances, I do think this Cincinnati offense is probably the best place to take chances. And as I mentioned kind of at the top at quarterback, we could just see Burrow maybe throwing more than we're projecting because we're kind of like just not totally sure what to expect in his first game and maybe being a touch conservative. So I like the Cincinnati guys. I'm probably on, like I said, on the Tinsley side. He's $800 cheaper, and I like the unknown element a little bit better. But yeah, either are fine. I've heard a lot of people in the chat mention DeAndre Hopkins. The role was, I think, like low-key good with Bateman out, but if Bateman's in, it's really touchdown or bust. You could get it on this slate. I'd rather play DeAndre Hopkins and Keaton Mitchell, but I wouldn't say I'm itching to play. I'm certainly not considering it in small field. The other one would be if Jaden Reed's out, Matthew Golden, he just hasn't hit. It's been frustrating, but you could see spike in pass rate for Green Bay this week. A lot of high variance opportunities for the wide receivers in particular. I'd rather play Golden than I think Hollywood Brown or DeAndre Hopkins or some of these other guys. Small field.
Yeah, okay. The other guys down here.
Do I have to drink every time I mention a player who's over 29? Because I did not. That was like an anti-Hopkins take.
That's true. You just said his name.
I want clarity on this from the chat. Now on the chat it says show integrity and reflect those per traits and let me know what the prompt is. It's mention. It's just mention. Okay. I stand corrected. I can't. This is how my brand is developed. I can't even refer to old players.
It's quite the brand you've developed, Leone. I will say a couple guys down here that maybe have a little bit higher touchdown equity are Isaac Tesla and Savion Williams, where Tesla, it seems like if they're going to throw to him, it's kind of like a 20-yard pass into the end zone. Savion Williams, he gets these screens and pop passes and stuff when Green Bay is in the red zone. But I think if you're trying to hit on one of those guys, you're telling the story that you have to have a 3K wide receiver in your lineup. I don't think they have especially high ceiling to them. So I wouldn't be playing them and then leaving like 500 plus on the table. I would be playing them where it just makes the rest of your lineup fit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Tesla, obviously, you're basically playing touchdown or bust, and do you get it or not? You're going to know right away in that first game. Can adjust accordingly, and you can survive the snowflake from a Tesla. If you get a little bit weird with the rest of your lineup, it's not good. You're probably not surviving a snowflake from Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and Khalif Raymond is out for this game, we're expecting.
Yes, we're expecting Khalif Raymond out, which is why Tesla is projected reasonable. Let's go to tight end. Apparently, we can't mention lineups that contain more than one tight end.
Well
but
phrased.
as you can see, via our ownership projections, the top 3 tight ends in and of themselves, I'm not sure if I use those words correctly, exceed 100%, which means someone is using one in a flex spot. I didn't mention Khalif. All right, fine. We'll just drink for mentioning.
Yeah, I think I was the one who...
People are giving us a good luck. The onesie positions are kind of death to this old age issue. So yeah, but either way, a lot of people are going to be playing a tight end in their flex. Let's word it that way. We have Andrews is clearly the highest owned. That's something I think our projections have done better job. Shout out to Connor, our data science team, of getting these TD rates right on players. And we have Andrews with like a really rather enormous share of the team's touchdowns relative to his overall target share. That's why he projects well, has a decent ceiling. So cheap, people are going to play him on this slate. Not sure people are super excited to get up to Kelsey and Jake Ferguson. Our Ferguson projection definitely feels light to me, even with Pickens and Lamb dominating the targets. But it's been tough to get right. He's been running hot on touchdowns, especially relative to his profile. Gesicki is the one that, dude, I am like just so annoyed the outcome last week, because I feel like I don't that much in DFS anymore get it in a way, that's what she said, that I feel like I've got a play that is just perhaps way better than the field projects. And I feel like I got it in that way, in this super good way last week, with Gesicki running 65% of the route, 16% target share. We had 3 catches on the opening drive, was basically playing wide receiver. Fant barely played, and it didn't come, with a, and that's what she said as well, with the result that was desired, just kind of a so-so result. And the worst part about these plays, Brat, is then you get them on a short slate the next week, and everybody saw the usage. So even the people that were worried saw it, and they're going to play it again. You have the sample last year with T. Higgins out, which was really, really good. Obviously, we had Chase out last week. We get T out this week. I think just a very long-winded way of saying I think he's going to be pretty popular this week, but I do think he's a good play.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely think that we got it in good last week. I think we earned our Skolansky bucks. I think both of us were all in on Mike Gesicki last week.
I have slept at my keyboard before. Didn't do great for relationship building.
I can't say I've done that, at least not since starting with ETR. But yeah, I think Gesicki's a really good play, even if he does get up there in ownership. I don't know that there's really a lot of great tight end plays here. I think that it's gonna really concentrate in those kind of top 2, maybe, with Andrews and Gesicki. I think Kelsey's going to be like the bottom of the top tier, but the way it shakes out, he could end up being like the top of the second tier instead. Just don't know, even though people want to play Kelsey. I think when it comes to hand building lineups, are people actually going to click Kelsey in when they could just save the money and go down the Gesicki or Andrews? And then I think it's more like there's a second tier of Kelsey and Likely, and then a vast drop off where everybody below that is in a third tier. We might even be hot on Brock Wright right now. I just don't see a lot of people getting all the way up to Brock Wright when they could play even Likely for $200 less. So I think people are going to also think they're getting a little sneaky playing both Andrews and Likely in the same lineup. I won't refer to what that roster construction name is, but having Andrews and Likely in the same lineup. Oh, is that 2 tight ends?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I don't think it'll be super sneaky. I think actually likely might be played with Andrews almost as much as he is solo, at least within Lamar stacks, because I don't think a lot of Lamar stacks are going to fade Andrews, at least in small field for sure when people are hand building. But overall, it's kind of a gross spot just because of how much the ownership is going to concentrate, while at the same time people are going to use tight end at flex because they're really good values. So I don't love this position. It's kind of gross overall.
It is gross overall. That's why I'm torn on like the Gesicki thing. If everybody sees it the way we do and it doesn't get mega steamed, or if maybe we're projecting a little bit and like, you know, the call's coming from inside the house and it's not maybe going to get as steamed as we think. That's the one thing I kind of want to figure out, because at around 30% or less, I would love to play Gesicki. If he gets outrageous, like 50%, then, you know, probably not. But that's someone that, you know, on vibes, I really, you know, I like him better than Andrews at these ownerships right now.
Yeah, and I do think one thing to...
We have to drink for steam and age.
Oh boy. I think another
we
thing...
will double dip.
Another thing to consider, and I know Drew talked about this last week on ETM, is just the idea that last year when we saw Gesicki have these big spike games, it was when T was out, not when Jamar was out. And then we saw the usage last week, and it's kind of just a one data point, small sample kind of thing that the field is going to run off of, where we saw Gesicki playing more of like the typical tight end spot. And I mean, he was out in the slot a lot, but he took other tight end snaps away from other tight ends.
Fant barely played routes, at least
right,
route-wise.
Exactly. And
really
Tinsley played a lot. Yoshivas played a lot, but maybe with Jamar in and T out, maybe they go back to more of what we saw last year. And Gesicki's just a pure wide receiver. Maybe Fant ends up playing a lot more than we expect. And maybe Yoshivas and Tinsley rotate, something like that. I'm just completely speculating right now. I'm not even suggesting it's likely to happen, but it is something that could happen. And it shouldn't be a surprise if that does happen, because we haven't seen it at all yet this season. So Fant could end up being a really good play, at least from a pure usage perspective, where he's going to be sub 1% right now.
I don't think Fant should be sub 1% on the slate, but it's a difficult proj, you know, with I think he ran 5% of routes last week. It's just difficult projection. The guy that I'm like, that I thought at first I'd be like, no, not a chance, I'm going to play it, that I'm like somewhat interested in, is Brock Wright, who in back-to-back weeks without Laporta's run about 60% of the routes, a little bit better than I expected. The target shares been 19% and 10%, so double-digit target shares both those weeks. Talked about Green Bay funneling targets underneath. Is someone you can get lucky with a touchdown on. Is cheap enough that literally one catch with a touchdown could get it done on this slate. So I like him at 10%. I know it's kind of gross, but I like him, you know, maybe a little bit better than the Sims say. You're obviously not going to get, like, he's not a player that's going to break the big plays Laporta is, and you're just hoping for cheap volume here, but I could see it hitting. Obviously, our projections don't like Jake Ferguson. We've been kind of wrong on that a few times this year. Tough to get that right. The other spot people will play into that's a tough projection is Musgrave versus Fitzpatrick. Everybody wants this to be Musgrave, right? But the route share for Musgrave the last 2 weeks, 35%, 33%. Awful. Fitzpatrick, 38% and 50%. Fitzpatrick has run meaningfully more routes than Musgrave the last 2 weeks. This is just how they're doing it. I know Musgrave's the guy that was more highly drafted than even Kraft, that we thought would be better than Kraft, but it's tight. So if you're in like really large field MME, you know, you could do worse than throwing a bone at Fitzpatrick, who's actually running more routes than Musgrave, the guy who's going to get some ownership. Not going to do either of those guys in small field.
Yeah, and I do think that if you're playing one of these guys that you're just kind of hoping gets to 10 points, I would not play Gesicki or Andrews alongside of them in flex, because at that point you're having them compete with the wide receivers. And just like we just talked about with Isaac Tesla, Sevion Williams, like if one of those guys is optimal, it's probably because the way the salaries fit together that you just need somebody who gets 10 points at min price. So I wouldn't want to go with, the double tight end in order to do that. If that is the case, I don't think that's a really great leverage spot there. So hit a bunch of buzzwords there to make you drink a little bit more, Leo.
I know people, they thought we'd get tripped up on late swap and onslaught more than we did. But once we got out of the quarterback position, we've been okay. Did you say double tight end again?
I did. And
I can't really fault you after I.
Do you want to go tout Romeo Dobbs while you're at it?
I do not want to. Okay. We get one person in the chat asking legitimate questions. It's the same logic playing the best plays with a few contrarian levers still apply to a 3-game slate. I think so. The one thing, okay, I'm going to talk about late swap. They got me. They pulled me in. The genuine question pulled me in, not you guys trying to fish and hook me on the bait. But I think one thing we've seen with late swapping on the main slate, Brat, is sometimes we think of it as like you got to play the contrarian plays early and like see what you have. You're muted, just so you know. And I think that is generally the better way to play it. But there are some slates we've seen where it's like if you showed up with chalk that you really, really liked and hit the nuts, and then sometimes you're just surprised that nobody else has that exact chalk combo. Like that can happen sometimes too. And you can see what other people have to know like how different you have to have even with the chalk hitting. So I don't think it's awful exactly to play late swap via chalk early is I guess just saying like that there's a route where that makes sense in addition to just having to have a contrarian play early and get that information. It's a horrible finish to my rant.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to play something contrarian early. I don't think that there's any guarantee by any means, or that it's like the optimal strategy by any means that you have to go that route in order to.
What? What?
The best part of that is you told me that I was on mute. I was aware of it. I wasn't trying to talk. You just let me know.
You looked like you were laughing. I like to capture the laugh.
I didn't want my
part of the audio, man.
Up.
That's like the ambiance, the camaraderie. We got to capture that.
Yeah, I'm still learning how to do this stuff
live. But
I'm still learning. I didn't want my laughter to cover up your very important advice.
My very salient and relevant and coherent point. I gotta know if there's any prompts we haven't hit yet now. If you're on mute, we hit an hour 15 into the show. And people are apparently still watching.
Yeah, there were only 10 lines on that card, so I feel like we have to have hit them by now. But yeah, you don't have to do a late swap here in the sense that you don't have to play somebody contrarian early just to, find out where you are. I think the important thing is that
sorry, someone got me with the Michael Cera comment. I don't know why. I don't think you look like Michael Cera, but got me.
I've never got that before.
I totally ruined your train of thought.
All good. Trying to recover here. I don't think that there's any need, or rather, I don't think there's a requirement to get early information. But I do think that if you are playing something contrarian early, then you should use that information to your advantage to make informed late swap decisions. And I think that if you're on the fence of well, I don't really have a preference between, playing JMO or Xavier Worthy or playing Isaac Tesla versus, Andre Yoshivas, go ahead and use the 50-50 coin flip tiebreaker to just play the earlier guy and get that early information if it's on, a 50-50 between a contrarian player. It just helps you figure out how you're going to get to the top more easily and lets you know whether or not you need to get contrarian late or not.
These guys, they're just like the chat is just trying to pull us into something we shouldn't say. Someone said there's 2 prompts we need to hit, and I kind of want to know what they are. We used to. The one bit I missed was the real tight end or not real tight end, which unfortunately we actually have like too many normal tight ends. Shout out Stone Smart, favorite of that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you and I both spend too much time in the spreadsheets to possibly not know any tight ends at this point.
Yeah,
it's a good game with Drew, though.
Game. Let's go to defenses. I'm weary of the chat. I'm skeptical of all of you at this point. They're all going to be played a little bit. It's defense. I don't know what you guys want me to say about it, but Baltimore is going to be the chalkiest, and Detroit's going to be the least chalky, and I think everybody else is going to settle somewhere in the middle. Oh no, they found my towel.
I'm not sure how to follow up that great analysis there. I do think people are going to gravitate towards the Ravens for sure. I don't think there's a great defense to play here because, like we said earlier, like these are 6 good offenses when they're rolling. So you kind of have to get lucky to some extent on which offense is going to make mistakes. That is kind of defense in a nutshell on all slates, but especially on this slate because there's no terrible offenses, there's no terrible quarterbacks. But I do think that there's some interesting contrarian ones. I think Lions are really interesting where
I thought I could make that flash. I guess I can't. No. Continue.
Okay. I think if Lions actually come in single-digit ownership and they're the only defense that comes in single-digit ownership, they're really interesting where you just assume that they're able to get pressure on Jordan Love, that they play a lot better than they did against Jameis Winston, or maybe they play decently against Jameis Winston and Jameis Winston is just the best quarterback in the league, also best wide receiver in the league. Who knows at this point? But the Lions are also interesting because you can pair them with David Montgomery. I think that's a good way to get the leverage off of all of the Lions chalk, including Jahmyr Gibbs, where, you know, if Lions get a defensive touchdown or 2, or they're just not pushed, it makes a lot of sense for them to give Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit of a break after he's had such monster workloads the past few weeks, because it's kind of out of necessity. They go back to David Montgomery. And that also takes away from any chalk steam, whether it's, you know, Christian Watson, whoever it might be, if anybody from the Green Bay side, even if it's just Josh Jacobs at like 25-30% ownership, that's still 25-30% of the field that you're eliminating in addition to all the other Lions guys. So I think Lions defense is really, really interesting. I think Bengals defense is really interesting too, where it mentioned earlier that, you know, they actually kind of look competent for the first time in I don't know how long against the Patriots last week. And now they get this Ravens offense that keeps on making mistakes, looks entirely broken. You know, Lamar's just not looked like himself recently. So I think Bengals at the min price at the second lowest ownership is really interesting as well. I have a lot of interest in both of those defenses if these ownerships hold.
Yeah, right now the sims of what I've tested are partly like you can play Baltimore, who cares? You're going to face a lot of pass attempts, even at chalk. Or flip that, get the leverage, play the Bengals defense. I know leverage is a thing.
Got to refill.
Where you're getting the negative correlation with the Ravens chalk DST, and you're also clearing a lot of cap space. So, Rick, I feel like Rick's been most concerned about what we've been drinking and the amounts. If I get through one bottle, which we're close, it's a problem. Okay, this is not 2017 Mike. Okay, this is 2025 Mike. There's a difference.
You had to think about the year there.
I did. It's a struggle. This is the Mike that took his kid to get braces 5 hours ago. Okay, so this is a bottle is more than enough. Okay, absolutely. Joe knows. I'm not even gonna try to go to bed in my own bed. Not a chance. No, we're going downstairs. We're snacking. Turning the TV on. Absolutely.
You got a
Daigle says to
futon in
play
your
the
office
Cowboys
like me?
DST. I don't, because I moved in a few weeks ago and I'm still working on it. I don't. I gotta work on the furniture game. Yes, Cam, we have electrolytes. We have a bunch of Tailwind ready to go. I don't have too much on the DST. I like the Bengals call with you. I like Lions. I mean, any defense that's that low owned, especially as a home favorite, seems like how bad could it be? So I'm with you on that one. I would probably bump that one. All right, we're getting into flag. Yeah. Flag plant o'clock. Before we flag plant, just so everyone knows, in case they don't already, I don't know if you're aware of this, Sam, but it is Black Friday. And if you go to establishtheRun.com/Black Friday, just let me confirm. Yes, establishtheRun.com/Black Friday. Do you know how much you'll save, Sam? You're muted.
I already took myself off mute here, but now we got a drink for that.
How much do you think we save?
I am aware that it's 65% off. And the reason why I'm aware is because I saw it and I was shocked that Adam didn't advocate for 69% off. Like, that was just a missed opportunity, I thought.
I agree with you. Oh, we got a drink for the promo too. God. For those of you that like to hear us talk about Sims and Onslaughts and Solver and whatnot, there's also a Black Friday deal over at Solver. They made a full picture, so I have to go away for a little bit. Solver 20 is your code. 20% off any NBA or NFL product. New customers only. Okay, we can flag plant now. Those were the prerequisites.
All right.
You're the guest. You get to go first. Just don't take mine, but go first.
I am not just the guest. I'm the honored guest.
You're the honored guest. That's not allowed to take my flag plant, but otherwise you can do whatever you want. This is your time.
All right. I know this guy is going to get steamed, but I don't really care because he can't get that much beyond like 33, 34% max. So I'm just going to go right back to the well where I was the last time I was an honored guest, Christian Watson.
The chat knew it. The chat's onto our flag plants.
I am hoping that at least one of Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden play. I will say, if those guys don't play, I'm off of Christian Watson. He's obviously going to project better in that case, but I think he's going to get way more ownership. And I think that if at least one of those guys play, if both of them play, he could come in like 20% where people just get a little bit scared off. So I like him a lot. I think that his role has been growing. I think he's finally healthy. I follow Rob Domofsky very closely. I think he's one of the best beat writers in the industry. And just the tone that Domofsky and the other Packers guys talk about him, it seems like he's like finally healthy. I think that he is the number one wide receiver that they've been waiting for. And I like Christian Watson here, even if the field does too.
I like it. Yards per reception by year for Christian Watson, 14.9, 15.1, 21.4, 16.6. Kind of ran bad on touchdowns last season. And, other than that, though, I mean, high yards per catch, decent touchdown rate. What more could you want? The opportunities have been rising for him. And it's the right defense for this kind of high variance play. So I agree with you. I like the Christian Watson play. The chat, let me rephrase that. The shot. Oh my God, I cannot speak anymore. These words are not coming out of my mouth. The chat guessed my flag plant as well as they guessed yours. Chris Foley, CeeDee Lamb. This is the classic Leone play that is just kind of like everybody wants to take the more exciting guy who's actually scoring fantasy points. And I'll take the guy who's not scoring fantasy points because he projects well. And I think there's outcomes where obviously George Pickens, higher yards per reception, higher touchdown rate. But the guy that could catch 12 balls in a game like this is CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, home stretch. I got a funnel. Home stretch. So CeeDee Lamb for me is the flag plant number one. Really like that at wide receiver.
All right. For number 2 here, I'm going to go stack right up with CeeDee Lamb, and I'm going to go Dak Prescott. I didn't come into the slate really thinking that he was going to be in flag plant consideration for me, but talking through it, I don't think that he has much potential to steam. We'll quickly drink for that. And I just don't think that Dak's ownership can really get too high here. I think if that game does turn into a shootout, if Dallas does put up a lot of points, I don't have a lot of interest in Javonte Williams. So naturally, that leads me to think that if there are a lot of points, they're going to come through Dak. I think that especially at 15-ish% ownership that we have him at now, and I think it's like capped at 18% maybe, that's a really good play. I'll happily double both CD and Pickens, and I don't even necessarily need both of them to have a ceiling game. If one of them has a middle game, one of them has a ceiling game, I'll be perfectly happy with it. I don't have to play the guessing game on CD versus Pickens. I like that game a lot. It's my favorite of the 3 games, and I'll attack it through the lower owned quarterback.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The show has had a pretty good run on when a quarterback's been flag planted, that quarterback has done pretty well. I'm between like 3 players for this last one, honestly. I'm between basically just tilting Mike Gesicki not scoring enough points last week and wanting to full martingale him. That's one. I'm between you want to talk martingale. Xavier Worthy's one where I'm just like, God, we get Xavier Worthy in a dome with that speed. The final one is the most classic on-brand play, which is like flip the leverage. Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't score the touchdowns. David Montgomery scores the touchdowns. I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. Okay, we're rolling out. These are the 3 receivers. You want to win? We're going to build a lineup, Sam. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if you knew this. We're ready, prepared to sign up for this. We're building a lineup.
I'm excited for this now because if I hadn't come around to Dak as a flag plant, Xavier Worthy was going to be my other one. So
okay.
It's not often that we are on the same page, but when we are, it feels very nice.
We're going to build a lineup here. If I can log into my DraftKings account onto the correct Google Chrome profile in order to share the screen, which requires me to manage multiple devices at once. But I've done it successfully. Okay. We're going to put this somewhere. We're not going to tell everybody where we're going to put it. But it's going to go somewhere. We'll put it in the Million Maker for now, but it'll go somewhere else.
This is the wrong slate.
This is not the correct slate. I was like, I didn't think I put in. Okay. All right. That was a tough start. Wasn't our best start. You can see Rasheen Ali is in I just clicked random names to enter a contest team. All right. You get to go first, Brat. Did I even flag plant? Did I finish with one?
Yeah.
Did I get to one? I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. Three wide receiver. Watson, Worthy, CeeDee Lamb with Dak. Congrats.
There we go. I think we should go ahead and put those 4 in.
Yeah,
does that work?
Yeah, full flag plan.
Cool.
Okay, now you get first pick. Or do you want second too?
It's up to you.
You're the honored guest. It's up to you. It's quite literally up to you.
All right. You know what? I don't want to get us down too crazy of a path here, and I'm worried you're going to take us there. So I'm just going to put Jameer Gibbs in there. I'm going to put Gibbs
it's like
in
a
there now.
fair concern to have.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Jameer Gibbs before you.
What the? Dude, Gibbs, we've been talking all show about he's the fade. I thought you were going to go Derrick Henry, like the, hey, let's not get crazy, but like keep it on the, all right, I can't fight with the guests, so guest number one gets Gibbs. Not happy about it, though. I'm not happy about it. Okay, well, I'm going Mike Gesicki because it's just. Do I get second too?
Yeah, go for it.
You know what? I'll be nice. I'll just go. We'll go Gesicki, Ravens D. We're playing the Bengals spam volume game.
Nice. So I will say if Watson wasn't in our lineup to start, obviously he is. I would have really liked the Lions defense, David Montgomery, mini correlation, whatever you want to call the defense with the running back paired. But I don't really love Watson in that script where I think he speeds up the game. They're taking deep shots. I don't think it really works as well with the Lions defense, even though it could, theoretically get there. So do I have two now or is it one?
You get one, and then we're gonna play fast and loose with the final pick. We're gonna put our minds together for the final pick.
All right. Well, I'm not trying to go with the double expensive running back here, but we've already got Ravens defense in there, so kind of lends itself to having Derrick Henry, and then I'll let you figure out how we're going to get weird in flex after that.
I thought, I don't like it because I don't like the double chalk running back on the slate. And you've had two picks, and you picked the two chalkiest players on the slate. in a drinking show. This is what the wild and loose Sam Brott cooked up. He cooked up the two chalkiest running backs on the slate.
We could rewind and take Watson out of it.
We have Dak Prescott right now, single stacked on a 3-game slate. I thought you were going to give me George Pickens, Javonte Williams, and we're going to figure it out.
We could rewind and take Watson out, and then I would actually really like that.
I mean, we could
then we can go Montgomery and Lions.
Okay. We're going to rewind. Who are we taking out? Gibbs?
Take Gibbs out. Yeah.
We're rewinding. Okay.
There we go. And we know exactly where we stand after the first game.
Are we Pickens-ing it then?
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually kind of tough we don't have a very good out here, dude.
Well, nobody said we had to use all our salary,
No, they didn't. So we just onslaughting with Javonte. We go, I guess we could do Chase Brown now that we don't have the Ravens D.
True.
We don't really want to do Jacobs against the Lions D because that's like a touchdown dependent play.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think it's Chase or Javonte.
I think either work.
Well, honored guest, you make the selection.
I'd say go Javonte in this lineup. I think Chase Brown's probably a little bit better of a bet, but I like to bet on the entire offense succeeding, and when it does, we call that an onslaught. And we put 3 players together.
No.
Cheers to that. I think
we onslaughted, but we did not double tight end.
Oh.
Do I have to drink just for saying it if I didn't suggest it? I think so.
I think so.
Okay. Look at this. This is what we call a true professional. Thank you very much. Now that I'm doing this, I'm like, should we just do Montgomery, Javonte, and Rashee Rice and like really? But no, we'll do Henry we'll do Henry. All right, this team's in. Leave the cash on the table, beat 600,000 people. That's how it goes. What do you think the prompts that we didn't hit on were? You get two guesses.
I only saw one of the prompts before it all started by accident because I didn't know yet that I was going to look at something when I opened up a screen, and it was one of the ones that I haven't seen yet that I remember.
Oh, wow. What was it?
And I remember seeing it because I was like, this is something Leone says a lot that I don't think I do, but maybe I do. And that was, do you want me to tell you?
Oh, let me. It's something I say a lot that you don't.
I don't think I do, but maybe I do. I know
but
you
I
do.
definitely say it a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of a hint.
It's how you refer to your contests or lineups.
Lines. Is it lines and not lineups? Lines? No. What is it?
No, it's calling my stuff.
My stuff.
Or, you know, Dak stuff or Mahomes stuff.
No, my like the contest I'm gonna play my stuff. Yeah. Okay. First of all, I had a whole conversation with my family about the whole Jacksonville team name debate. And it must be a Buffalo thing because Jaguars, fuck you guys. It was fine in my family. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pull it up. What do you want to take a guess at the one we missed?
I have no idea.
Was it Jaguars? Okay. Stuff, small field. Mark Andrews tush push. I don't think we did Mark Andrews tush push.
We didn't. That must have been it.
Mark Andrews tush push equity. That was it. Oh God. I'm in a media assets nightmare game here. Okay. All right. Well, it's been fun.
Yes, indeed.
I'm sure that I'll sleep well tonight with no repercussions. And I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving and checks out the Black Friday deals at establishithrun.com/Black Friday for up to 65% off.
And at the Solver for 20% off.
New customers only at the Solver. Fine print. Appreciate everybody for tuning in the chat, for keeping us honest, for the prompts. Hope we didn't disappoint. Brat, thank you for filling in for Drew. Drew, I hope you feel better. Missed having you, buddy, on this show. Next year, we'll bring back the real tight ends or fireman thing. Oh, that's probably another Buffalo accent thing. But yeah, good luck this weekend. Brat, the flag plants are going to hit. I feel it. Quadruple flag plant for the W.
There we go.
All right, now it's just a matter of time if I can find the correct media assets to close this out. I just got to pop in. This is still recording. I hit the stream starting. There were like 5 videos for me to hit. I could have pressed any one of them. And I hit the stream started one. And I was just like, when is this going to end? It was not ending.
Time to end the stream.
Time to end the